No? Okay.
Might as well work with you this
First
week.
item is
It's legit.
Pine Acres. Joe? Not come out here, yeah.
Why is it dark right there?
Yes, I'm here to give you an update as to where we stand. You wanted me to come in and see you progress? There we go.
Yep.
Pine Acres. So the curbing's in, all the structures are raised, sidewalks prepped. We're going to pave today, but obviously it rained. A couple of driveways have been paved. And so we're gonna mill down North Street and pave Portland at the same time next week.
Okay. Because I went by and saw it at that point.
Yep.
Okay.
What about the mailboxes? I saw they're still in buckets.
Yeah, once the sidewalk gets done, they can permanently put those in the right spot. So after next week, they can install them permanently. Obviously, I'll submit for my bond release at that point, and then I'll file for,
Don't wanna be labor, they didn't, the post office didn't want them out on North Street?
no,
Okay, I don't know which way they go, because like on Olmsted, they want them all,
oh, like a community, you know,
some days like this, some days like that.
right.
Okay, so everybody's got their own mailbox.
Everyone has their own mailbox, yeah.
Anybody have any further questions? Okay. There being none, okay,
All right,
go for it.
thank you.
Bye, Bill. Oh, good. Okay, the hour being after 7:15, we have a continued hearing, site plan 21-09. And with that being said, Kate, you got the folders?
Completed plan.
This is the new, and these are the notes.
Jeff, I just put the minutes so you can see what we have
Yep.
done. Nothing's been done since February 3rd. It's been continued.
Okay,
February 3rd, you opened it.
yeah. On April 21st, just to bring everybody up to speed, we continued this at your request, Mr. Alpern, until tonight. So that's where we are tonight for 1429 Main Street site plan. With that being said,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think I have much to add to the site plan. I don't know if it was your preference to open the public hearing on the definitive subdivision plan, because the last time I was here, the board was wondering about, just as a reminder, what we're doing is we're looking for a modification to a site plan decision that was approved in 2014. And in order to do that, the modification that we're looking to do is to take away part of the property that was approved with the site plan and not have it be encumbered by the site plan decision. In order to do that, we have simultaneously submitted a definitive subdivision plan to show that split in the lots. So I don't know if it's the chairman's preference to open both public hearings at the same time, or if it's your preference to just handle the site plan decision as one decision, as one matter. That's totally fine by me. It's the board's preference.
okay, typically if we have a special permit on the site plan, like for the aquifer, it's all contained in one. It kind of makes sense. This is two distinct things. So my thought is very simple, is present it here, go through this. Once we understand it, get in our heads again, and everyone else, then we'll open the other one. And see that separate, and then they get melt.
I like their approach, Mr. Chairman. That's totally fine. So, as a reminder, what we are seeking is a modification to the site plan decision that was approved in 2014. The decision allowed a mixed-use condominium project in the front of the property, and it encumbers the entire rectangle property right here. Not this section, not any part of the Marion Street. It's a site plan that approves this, and I believe I have the 2014 site plan in your materials. and it's the entire property. What we're seeking is a modification to that site plan decision by removing this portion of the property from the site plan that was approved. So essentially, we're just looking to replace the, replace the site plan that was approved with almost a like plan except for the front portion of the property. There was a special permit that was granted along with the site plan by this board, and we're seeking, that authority is now under the Zoning Board of Appeals. So in order for us to get a modification to that special permit that went with that site plan, we are currently in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals, who we met with last night, for a modification to that special permit, because that special permit references the site plan that was approved, and we continued the hearing after their hearing, because they wanted to hear what the planning board had to say.
Okay,
So a lot of moving parts.
so basically, you took it one lot and squashed it all the way down to have your 26-foot buffer line, correct? For the new site plan?
That's correct. I mean, there.
That is the property line too, correct?
Yeah, correct. That's correct. This is something that we're talking about. We're talking about buffer zone. There is the buffer zone that requires 26 feet from the zoning district line. And that was waived in the original site plan decision. But we're not changing anything with the buffer zones with our new plan. So the buffer zone is staying where it is.
Yeah, it says if you abut, you must maintain a 26-foot, not from the zone line, but from your building line. It's a buffer, so to speak.
Okay, well, we also provide that
Yeah,
as well.
and the other thing, because I brought it up before, but I've learned since on another project, the decks don't count.
Decks don't count, right.
Why, but they don't count.
And I don't think fences count either.
Fences don't, but decks, because ran into that with elevated decks or even on the ground, and the building inspector said, no, that's okay. Like if you had an overhang, you could go out to 25 feet, which I find kind of, but that's the interpretation of zoning. So what you got now is you guys are just taking it, and this will be the lot. Now, that lot, I assume, John, meets all the criteria?
Meets all the criteria, and there's a zoning schedule on there that anyone can
Okay.
check our math and interpretation of it.
It meets the square footage. That's the biggest one, you've reduced it.
All the square footage, lot and lot coverage. We're not
Okay.
changing any, well, just other than the rear setback, we're not changing any setbacks front or side.
Okay,
Excuse me.
with that, I'll read some comments in case anybody, and then we, the board and anyone else. So, from the unit owners, not even dated, there's a copy. I don't even know what this is, so it says from unit owners, but nobody signed it, so they said they're in agreement, but doesn't matter without anybody signing it. The only other one I have, other than what Sarah had sent from an email from one of the people, is from Carl. You have two here, one May 18th and one May 12th. You wanna,
Yes, Mr. Chair, I delivered the original comments for this thing on 31st of January, and then recently on May 12th, I delivered a very brief memorandum to the board that I noted that if the subdivision is, in our original review, we had noted some concerns about the drainage behind the building. There's a low spot there. But thinking about this and having looked over the subdivision, any off-site stormwater would be eliminated if the subdivision was approved. So I've noted that if the subdivision is approved, there's no comment, no concern with the drainage. And then we've also noted that there's a buffer zone, and under the zoning, section 5G, there's some landscape requirements in the buffer zone. I didn't specify them, but the board can discuss that and the applicant. Then on May 18th, I did another follow-up memorandum, and I noted that in our original review, we had commented that I felt that 2 handicap parking spaces were required on the original approved plan. Mr. Glosser pushed me on that, and found that I was in error, so I have retracted that statement, and there was one required and there's one provided, so that all seems to be squared away.
Okay, thank you. I'll start with John.
This is site plan we're talking, right?
Yep.
Okay. What provisions are being made for landscaping within the buffer zone?
Well, I'm glad that landscaping was brought up. That's one of the concerns that we've heard through the neighbors since we've opened up the public hearing. And there are some, in the original decision, there is conditions about maintaining the landscaping plan. And so what we would propose to do is that we still follow through with those conditions when it comes to the back portion of the property, specifically the tree line for the abutter property owner. So we are totally fine with making sure that the landscaping conditions relative on the property that we're taking away stay in effect, to make sure that we provide a buffering landscaping plan for all the neighbors.
But not the front property?
No, well, the front property needs to comply with the original decision.
Okay.
Well, the issue is now, there's now gonna be two properties, not one property. When you had one property, you didn't have to worry about the buffer zone, because there wasn't anything to buffer. But now, if you have a new lot next to it, and suddenly it's not gonna be all trees anymore, you have to consider the views, or the impact it'll have on the existing building. They can have an expectancy that they aren't going to be looking out at another house or another business or something. And there are requirements within the buffer zone bylaws that state a couple of rows of trees or something, I believe it is, within that 26-foot buffer. Since basically the front's staying the same, I don't think there's too much of an issue in anything there, if Kyle feels that any drainage issues have been addressed. I know the proposal is to put the cul-de-sac in and a house on the far side of it. So I think the main issue is, assuming, I think you've shown that you have all the square footage you need and you have the frontage. As long as you can show that the stormwater management is taken care of. So the biggest issue is providing that buffer, I think, between the existing home, building and that piece of property and the new separate residential property that's been created. That's pretty much it, I think.
Yeah.
We-
Kate?
So I agree with the buffer. I also had a question, and I can't find it in my notes, so maybe you can recall, but there was a big discussion from the neighbors about the bamboo issue.
Oh, yeah.
Japanese style.
Would you like to see pictures?
So where do we stand on that?
All I know is that my client has given a full commitment to get rid of it as much as he can.
But nothing's happened?
Nothing, nothing.
You're gonna get your shot.
I'm not sure what it's done on the ground. I think it had something to do with the weather, and the weather's getting nicer, so I've directed my client to get rid of it as soon as possible, and I know that it's his intention to do so. And any sort of condition of approval to say that we want to get rid of all the invasive species, we're happy to agree to that. We're happy to make agreements with any abutters that are here, any neighbors that are here, about making promises to get rid of that, because we understand that that's some nasty stuff, and we're totally on board of getting rid of it for everybody. That is not an issue, and we're happy to make any sort of agreements, make it any sort of conditions of approval to get rid of it.
I think that's important because that was, I mean, we heard it from many
Several,
neighbors. And it was a lot of time spent on it. And, you know, it's one thing to get it approved and then the building goes up and they still have to deal with it. So we want to make sure that it's definitely addressed and not just, it's been a while since we talked about it. It's been quite a while. It has to be addressed. I think that's
Well, that
no
can,
question.
you can do it in two fashions.
Yeah.
One, you can put it in this decision and also put it in the subdivision decision. That, we don't got much teeth on this one, meaning the fact that, once he gets it, but we can put it in the other decision saying prior to any endorsement of the plan, all the stuff will be gone.
Yeah, you could definitely make it, something that,
Not even building permit, endorsements, so you're kinda stuck after the 20 days.
I like that. I shouldn't say that, but creative way to handle it.
You know this is broadcast in Canton, right?
That's all I had.
Wave to John. Okay, that's all I had. Phil?
Yeah, and I want to clarify, that it's not bamboo, but it is Japanese knotweed. I think that was,
That's right,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm not
and
sure what
and
the
that's,
term was.
that's a very important distinction, because
I was out there
knotweed,
yesterday, it's there.
yeah, I drove by there today, and so the Japanese knotweed is on the Massachusetts prohibited plant list. It's one of the worst invasive plants we have.
Right.
And it's important that something be done now. This is the time of year to address it. So I have to say that since we've been hearing this quite a while, it doesn't give us a lot of confidence that something's gonna happen either soon or it's gonna be sufficient. It takes a lot of work to get rid of Japanese knotweed. And it's important that you work with the abutters, because the roots can go, can go 200 feet. In other words, that's one of the notorious things about it. So the abutters need to be part of that to make sure that you're helping them eradicate anything that's on their property. But it's quite a field of knotweed there, I would say. It's a huge problem. So this is the time of year to do something. It takes professional help. It can't just be somebody goes in and mows it down and thinks
Right.
that's it.
Right.
If you're gonna apply herbicides, it needs to be done very carefully, and that needs to also be done in conjunction with the neighbors, because that may have an impact on them. And again, we've heard that you're gonna do something, or the developer's gonna do something, but we haven't seen anything, and
Well,
I would just add, it is a big project, and, it's one of those things where it might not, without an approval, it might not be worth for him to do. But certainly, any sort of condition of approval, we'd be happy to take care of it.
but there's a term used a lot of times, it's called good faith. And if I want an approval, whatever, and showing I'm gonna do it, I would at least start on something before the next hearing. Because if the slower he goes, I think the slower we can go.
Also, it increases in the heat, right? So as we get into the hot months, it just,
this is the time to, yeah.
Yeah.
It grows, it'll be more vibrant, more
yeah.
lush, it's feeding the roots, which are actually and I forget the exact term, but it has this, a fair amount of underground root system, which is where all the energy is, and that's what props up all the shoots,
So,
and they can grow many feet, and it's recognized as a serious problem in Massachusetts, and there even have been lawsuits involved with neighbors,
Right.
because some people haven't had trouble getting mortgages if they have Japanese knotweed on their property, so.
so by the time we close this, which probably won't be tonight, but next time I come back, we'll see something been done. Whether you two are out there with axes,
The sickle,
Yeah, and I think it means working with the appropriate company, who can come up with the plan that's gonna fit the land. And again, this is a fairly extensive growth. It's a good portion of that back end of the property. And it looks like some of the roots, they're 10 feet or more high right now. It looks so pretty lush. And then some of the other questions are the things that Carl brought up, and I know the email that you got, Sarah, which I would like to understand more about. I'm gonna assume they're gonna cover some of that.
Well, that resident is here, so I don't know if
Okay,
she's
so-
going to
So it might be
speak.
good, that would be good to
So
hear.
it's better to
Yeah,
let
so
her
I
speak
would-
for herself.
I would defer to that resident, then I would like to hear more about that. And then Carl, in your list of other things that didn't happen, from the original plan, So was there anything else in that list that you now have, that you would want to raise as a concern? I know you said maybe one thing you mentioned was not a concern in the end, the drains. But there was a wall was constructed, and that made a low area, but you said it may not be, but the lower area may be problematic. Do you see that as a problem? That was item number 4A.
Through the chair, that's why I issued the clarification
Yeah, and
recently.
pardon me for missing that, by the way.
It said that once you remove the off-site water, first of all, I thought about it, and no one said any issues about flooding or anything, even with it the way it is now. But once you remove the off-site flows, I sincerely doubt there would be any problem back there now. One mitigating factor to all this is that there are very good soils on that site, and they probably absorb water way faster than even conventional calculations would yield. So I suppose that's why that isn't a problem even right now. So, no, I don't have any concern with it.
Okay, no, thank you. I just wanted to make sure if I did miss something. So I think that's all I have.
Okay, Sarah?
Okay. I guess I'll just say at the outset, it's disappointing to hear that, maybe the applicant will consider doing something about the overgrowth, when he did not do what should have been done on the original decision. So that I just find quite disappointing. So on that original decision, I think John had mentioned that he was gonna get us the landscape plan or the part of the decision with that, and I'm not sure if I have that.
You need the original landscape?
Yes, yeah,
I have the original landscape.
okay,
The landscaping is shown on the site layout plan. So all the landscaping is shown here.
and has
So-
that plan been submitted to the board for this review?
Well, no,
No,
but I
okay,
got this from the planning board office, so.
okay,
You're right. I did say I was gonna do that, but this is it. So, not to tell you a lot of stories, but when we first started on this and we went out there to do our surveying and our as-built plan, that everything's is based on, we started counting up the plants and noticed that there were a lot of them,
not there.
missing. And we did contact Mr. Marini, and he did, as far as, we went back and counted them, and, they might not be there to the actual number of, if there might be 9 of something instead of 10 or something, but and then there's a place there where they made a concrete walk where they were showing plants, so there's none of plants there, but, to me, and I told this last night, I think it, if somebody asked me, does it substantially comply with the original approved plan? My answer would be yes, it substantially complies. So, as far as the plantings and as far as everything else. Now, the abutters are gonna tell you a story, and I have no idea on how who paid for the plantings, and I guess the work where we put where he put the fencing around the dumpster, and I didn't have a chance to look at it, I guess was not the best, and now it's kind of falling apart, but those things can be, fixed before we do any voting.
Okay.
But
Could I hear from our town engineer on, do you have an opinion on, is it substantially taken care of, the previous landscape plan? Is that something that you looked at?
I looked at all that in the original review,
Yeah,
all right? And when it came back in, a number of issues had been addressed, including putting fencing around the, screening around the dumpster and
Okay.
some trees over on that side. A number of things had been put in since we did our very first review.
okay,
I haven't looked at it recently, and quite honestly, this thing's been in and out, and there's a lot of time elapsed, and we just cannot keep reviewing this
Sure.
thing
Okay.
endlessly.
Okay, okay. There was a comment that the building footprint was larger than was approved. Do you have those numbers, what was approved and what was done?
I don't, but it is you're right, it is slightly larger.
Okay, if we could
I'll
define
give you
slightly,
the numbers.
okay.
You know, it's not huge larger, but we did note that it's a little bit larger than what's shown on that.
Okay, okay.
So it's larger than was approved?
Yeah,
What do you mean by a little bit? Like,
Well, you know what I'll do, and I'm sorry that I didn't do this, because I didn't really do my notes like this one before we came back, but what we can do is I can submit to you, probably not gonna be tomorrow, because one of my draftsmen is, he hurt himself, so he's probably gonna be out for a while. But I'll have the other draftsman, take the plan, we take this plan, and he can then superimpose what was actually built over it, and then we can actually add
That
what
would
the
be
square footages, and you'll be able to see exactly where the building was built and where it's bigger. But it's not like, you know,
Would it-
10% bigger or something, it's just, I think it's just, I forget where it is now. It's
Did it
about
impact the
2/3 or
setbacks?
something like that. Hmm?
Did it impact the setbacks? The
No,
side
no,
setbacks?
no, no. He never would have gotten past the building inspector if it didn't, when we do a building or a house or anything, once the foundation's in, you have to provide to the building inspector an as-built plan showing where that is, and it better comply, and the building inspector's not gonna, let you go forward, so. So anyway, it complies with all the setback requirements.
okay. And then, as a couple other members have talked about, the buffer zone. So, the question is your client interested in adding landscape, tree line within that buffer zone that you're proposing, which would be on the condo owner's property? Or maybe they would have more of a say of it, so,
Yeah, I think the preference would be, if we're able to put it all on our property.
Yeah, so
okay,
I don't think it would really help. I mean, I'm not trying to avoid that, but if you went behind this building,
yeah,
and you can, let me go to the grading plan here. And I know Carl's been behind the building, because that's kind of what Carl was saying about the drainage.
yeah,
But let me just flip to the grading plan, and you'll sort of see what I mean.
But right on the other side is the street, basically, correct?
So can you see how all these contours are sort of making this, so what that is that's going down.
Okay,
So if you're adding plantings in here, it's not really gonna, it's not gonna block anything from anybody viewing, unless you add them, I guess, at the very top of the slope here.
okay,
But to actually completely plant this inside there with, it's sort of grass now, you know, so I don't really see, it might give these, the businesses are on the first floor, but, I don't think they're really interested in having rhododendrons and azaleas when they open their back door there, which I think is just an emergency exit.
yeah. So where, if anywhere, are you proposing plantings?
Well,
Nowhere.
no, because, so this is a modification of the site plan, right? The site plan,
Yeah,
and I wasn't here, but I'm just going to,
but, to John's point, the site plan had a bunch of trees back there, and now you're proposing a house. So now we do have a buffer. We have a buffer between a business use, a business zone, albeit mixed use, and a single-family home, so,
I'm just gonna anticipate what happened when they came in, and that is that this property is really the only property that had any sight line to the building. This building here is actually in the business zone, so there's no buffer zone between those two, but what they did do is they put a fence here, and they put arborvitae's all along, and on the plan, it showed it going back to this point here, a row of arborvitae's and a fence, but they extended it when they built it all the way back to this location here, and I think that may have had something to do with some work that happened after the fact, so to speak. Once they got their permit, I think they did a little bit more work than anticipated. So,
But the buffer would be with the potential new home, is what I'm saying.
right, so we can talk about that now, or we can talk about that when you see the plan that shows where the new house is gonna go.
But the point's made, I understand what you're saying, and I think it makes sense that, that we anticipate in providing an additional landscape buffer, beyond the buffer line.
Yeah, I would just say if we're gonna do something, we should do it at the top of that slope. And then this house actually is still gonna have a view, because this house is gonna be quite a bit higher in elevation than this.
Okay.
So they're gonna still be looking down.
Okay, I mean, you know, I'm not insisting on anything, I'm just trying to understand, like, if you're planning to put plantings in this front lot, then I think, you know, we definitely need to hear from the neighbors who live there, so that's what I'm trying to understand.
But I think that, you know, moving the lot line down here doesn't change anything with how the planning board required this to be screened from this house here. We're not doing anything to this line of arborvitae's and this
Mhm.
fence. That's still there. So this house, I believe, is still protected in the way they were under the original approval. And I know what you're saying. Now you're saying, well, we're gonna have a new house,
Mhm.
and how are they gonna be protected? So,
Yeah,
again, we can think about that and, you know, maybe take a look, consult with some landscape type people who will tell us what to do.
okay.
It sounds like you would put plantings on the top of the ridge line, the new.
Yeah,
But that's the road.
That's the, yeah, the
right, but when you
That's the
see
layout.
what's gonna happen, because there's gonna be a cul-de-sac here, so probably want to do this.
yeah, it won't be in, yeah, so we need to take that up at the site plan, or the subdivision.
Yeah, that might be the better place to put it. Plus with the subdivision, you get a bond, bigger hammer.
Yeah, I think those are my main questions for this portion, but I definitely, you know, want to hear from the neighbors.
Okay. All right, I got more than a few comments. I love that word substantial. It's a nice word. In my business, John, in my business, when I need something cut 10 foot 3.5, I don't expect, it's about 10. All right? If I offer you a salary of 200,000, your first check comes out and it's 150, well, it's substantially close to 200. The word substantial goes out the door. It's 1 + 1 is 2. Now, the other interesting thing about this is we have a site plan that you're asking for modification, but Mr. Marini already modified it before it even got to us. Correct? Didn't do all the plantings and made the building bigger. Right?
Yeah,
That's a modification, isn't it?
yeah.
So you've presented us to something that was the original. All right? I know it's your client. I'm not beating you up yet.
No, that's okay.
But,
I understand.
oh, you, yes. But, my point is, he didn't even do what he's supposed to do. And he's using the old plan to say, this is what I want to modify and just move the line. No.
Well, no.
So, let's,
But you understand, I'm not showing the original building that was approved on my plan. I'm showing the building that was built out there.
and it has the right size?
The building on this plan that we drew, the building with my name on
Yeah.
it, is the one that's out there now.
Okay, so it's a
That's
bigger
not-
building.
that-
Okay.
It's a bigger building, that's not that building.
All right, so, but we still, so we're not just modifying the site plan for moving the lot line, we are also asking to modify it for building size.
Well, you know, it's our assumption that that's the preference of the town, that we show what's actually there. And obviously, if we don't comply with the original plan, there is obviously a zoning enforcement that could have happened. There could have been the building
It
inspector
could've.
stop issuing certificate of occupancies and everything
Well,
else.
there's another thing that.
But it's there now, and so it's.
I
there-
understand, but it's built a little bigger, but still, it's not in accordance, it's a zoning infraction. Okay? So I think that should be added to this. The other thing is, what I don't like is the fact that the only reason why all these plants were starting to come is because this was coming back to us, so he never did complete what he's supposed to. To me, I don't even wanna see it until all the plants are there that was on the original drawings are there. Not substantially, if there's 10 arborvitaes, there should be 10 arborvitaes. If you wanna put 11, fine, but not 9. And we gotta get this up. So the other thing is, I keep hearing, you represent your client, I know that, too bad he isn't here, you gotta have good faith. This isn't good faith, make your building bigger and don't do all the plants you're supposed to do, but he's gonna take care of the Japanese knotwood. That's not really good faith.
Maybe.
Well,
If we're going to approve him, he'll do
yeah,
it.
yeah, and in the demonstration, it hasn't been demonstrated. So, I think you might wanna, we'll have to talk about the building, and at least by the next time, I expect to see all the plants in there. You'll have time to do it, all right? He's gotta do it anyway, because that's another zoning violation. Not to say that building inspectors go count plants, but it's already been talked to us about that. I'll just speak to the buffer on the residential. That doesn't hold, because we can't enforce it. It's a individual lot. You can't enforce a buffer.
No, there's no buffer on the residential lot.
No, what you're gonna do is you want a buffer with plants and stuff on the resident, that's what you keep talking about.
No.
What do you mean, no? That's what I heard. Don't you wanna put some more plantings on the lot?
On the single-family home lot.
Just to, I'm sorry, what? So,
What I keep hearing is, well, we can add more to the subdivision lot.
yeah, just to appease if the board preference, but I don't think
But
we
what
have.
I'm saying is, that has nothing to do with the site plan, and that's under subdivision control, and we don't control the buffer. The owner can go right to the lot line and wipe it out, just like Mr. Marini did when he bought the property, so. As far as anybody's concerned, putting a buffer on the lot, you could have it. You could put it up there, wonderful, and the homeowner comes there and goes, "Phew," the next day. So from a legal standpoint, there is no basis that will stay. It may be there for a day, and then, like I said, so anything that's gonna be buffered is gonna have to be looked at inside the 26-foot. So that, I think that goes back to what everybody up here has said, is gotta look a little more landscape or something to that effect, okay? Because the other one floats on its own, or the subdivision, private lot. And I think,
I mean, there's enough room to do it on the business lot. And I know what you're saying about you can't control it on the residential.
yeah, but you could always,
On the mixed use lot.
yeah, so. Ma'am, please. All right, so we're gonna have a plan that's gonna show, well, the plan, John, I assume you used the old landscape plan and put it on your plan. So you're representing that's there, so therefore, your client will be doing some planting this week to bring it back to where it's supposed to be.
Well, like you said, I gave
You know,
him-
all right, I'm the big bad guy here. I'm the big bad, I'm making a guy do what he was supposed to do in the first place. End of discussion. If it isn't done by the next time, I'm just going, no, done. So I'll pull the trigger because I don't like getting toyed with. It was required to do, he didn't do it, it will be done before the next time we meet, or you're gonna get a big fat down from me.
Okay, let me just explain. So,
I know.
before I even agreed that I would come
John,
in
can you
front of
come,
this
can you come
board-
for the microphone?
Yeah.
Just so people
Before I
at
even
home can hear you.
agreed that I was gonna come in front of this board, we made a list for Mr. Marini and said, you're short, 5 azaleas, we're short this, you're short this, you're short that. And gave it to him, and the plants were planted. But I didn't personally, my guys went out and said, yeah, they're all in there, but they're not landscaper guys. So I will go out and count all of the plants and count, there's a list on this.
Yep. in
and I'll
compliance.
let
If
you
they're there,
know.
they're there. If they're not,
Yeah, I'll let
they
you know.
will, no, not let us know. You let the guy in Canton know to get him out there the next day.
I'll let him know, that he's short, but it's not, believe me, it's not a substantial amount. It was, but it's not anymore.
John, I'd like to be a chef and give you a substantial steak about that.
Mr. Chairman, we understood your comments. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so, we'll take any comments from the neighbors.
Oh, can I go, my mom's sick at home, I kind of get your back on
You
this.
came late, I was here early.
Actually, I'm gonna show, I have a slideshow,
Oh,
so they come with pictures, I come with pictures.
Be very careful.
Okay, now the question, I know both you guys been here before. This will, I'm asking the general question, this will encompass both the site plan and the
Right.
subdivision.
So where we start with, and they're
Oh,
all
you-
written
okay.
on the back is, this is my property, 18 Marion Street. I think you actually drove down there one day, I think you saw the end of the dead end.
I was there today. Yep.
Yep. And this is what, it will show you on the back, written on it, what John Marini has not done. And as my neighbors over here will attest, we have a snake
Ma'am, come to
problem.
the microphone if you could just say your name and address, please.
Lynn Vendetti, 18 Marion Street. My neighbors that live in front of me who are pristine about their lawn and everything like that, now we have a rat problem and a snake problem and various vermin that come in because you can see the bamboo grows so tall. And my mother's 90 years old and sits in the garden in her chair and pulls out the little, out of our, because if the spores get too big, it's difficult to get rid of them, and they just spread and spread and spread. The dump won't take them because they don't want them. If you burn them when they're fresh, the spores will spread. I call them zombie plants because you can't kill them. So this is my notes about Marini. Don't reward bad behavior. All right, he has thumbed his nose at this board umpteen million times on various different things. He has cut down the trees that has caused this problem after he was told not to do it. He was fined. He doesn't care. Now he's gonna try to take the property away from the condo that actually, if he actually built a nice little playground or something behind that with a fence, that would look actually gorgeous and improve the property, and put the trees back in, that instead of fining him, he should have actually been forced to put the trees back. Instead, he put in spruces, as you will see in the pictures, that I have to save every year because those bamboo plants come after them and they will choke them out. I love my property. I don't want to see my 90-year-old mother out there trying to pull this to try to save her plants. We moved to Walpole to have some peace, and it's been nothing less than a nightmare with this guy. And hi, Mom, she's watching me on TV right now. It's a small plot. I can't picture what kind of house you could actually build on that because it's upgraded. So you would actually have to do some serious digging, and it's rock, so I don't know whether you'd actually have to blast it. Plus, imagine your backyard listening to, I'll have 2 coffees and a bagel with no cream cheese on it, because that's where their windows would be, right at Dunkin' Donuts. I didn't hear that till those trees came down, and now we hear that. Plus, there's a landscaping company right there too, and there's a huge retaining wall. I don't understand how they can actually plot out a house there that would be worth anything to anybody. Because I would look at it as a potential buyer and go, wow, okay, my kids could fall off that back retaining wall, or, I want to hear some guy in the morning yelling at the guy at Dunkin' Donuts. All right. Let's see. If you go on Zillow, you can actually look at 18 Marion Street and actually do the circle of what that area looked like before Marini just decided in his own hands to take down those trees. again, I believe in extending the condo complex property a little bit more and make it, that would look it really nice, and they put a fence there. I don't understand how they could put a cul-de-sac, a circle, right here. This is my house, and this is my retaining wall, my retaining wall. Marini tried to tell me it was his. If you look at the pictures, that was there before he ever existed. Where are you gonna put a cul-de-sac? Here? Here? I mean, this is larger in the picture than what it states. So therefore, when snow removal comes in, what, are they gonna push it into their cul-de-sac? Where are they gonna push it? Plus, my friend over here last night was up here fighting for her condo, and the gentleman said, he goes, well, now the buses have a place to go down the street. There are no children in our neighborhood, first of all. There are no children. Second of all, the bus stop is right on 1A. So therefore, there's no need to move the bus stop. Well, then he argued that the trash truck doesn't have to go backwards. They do that all the time. Our street is literally about the size of this room. Do I want a house there? If somebody else was building it, maybe. I don't trust this guy. All he does is lie. He tries to manipulate his own condo complex, sticking them with taxes for stuff that now he's trying to take the property away. I'm on their side. I would rather see them build out a property that I can look out my barn and say, that looks nice. That looks really nice. Because I don't understand this man. He's never followed through on anything he's ever done. And how you can level that ledge where it's kind of rock-like without disturbing all his neighbors, disturbing that retaining wall over there, and destroying my retaining wall, I would like to know. And on a last note, this guy is really, he's got attorneys. He's not here. I have to take my time out of my night every 6 months to repeat myself like Groundhog Day. He doesn't do what he says he's gonna do. So can we find a solution, make him division up the property, maybe offer it up to some of us neighbors to buy part of it, relieve him of the taxes, but also give these people in the condos, their backyard. Thank you for hearing me.
Okay, thank you. Just so you understand, we can't force them to do any of that.
No, I know.
Okay, just wanted you to know, okay.
Again,
Sure.
and you can keep those pictures for review.
Good evening. Steve Lynch, 80 William Street. I have to be this property on A. It's kind of interesting that I do have the plans that have been shown back and forth, but what I do have, buffer zone has been talked a lot. And I do have the buffer zone screening plan when he was approved to get this in. And the buffer zone that I'm looking at that hasn't been discussed at all, and I don't know if this is the proper time to discuss it, is you see, if I put it up here, this way here, it shows the trees that had to be planted. The number, arborvitae's, all that is listed. This is the plan that I believe was approved for him to get his occupancy permit. If that is the case, shouldn't this buffer zone remain regardless if it's subdivided? And if not, if it does become subdivided, does this, it has a 30-foot buffer zone there. Does that remain? And if that does remain, does this lot become non-conforming because now it's 30 feet? And that is residential to residential, but in my opinion, I believe this buffer zone and all of it should remain, whether it's subdivided or not. And this is the plan I think was passed, approved by all the neighbors
Yeah,
for him to get his occupancy.
what
How would that work?
that's where, we'll take one step at a time. What I do recall, well, first off, from the legal standpoint, because that was one lot, you're supposed to have a buffer between business zone and residential.
Understand.
That's what, so because that was one lot, he put it way up there. 'Cause
Not to interrupt, and
That's where he
on the
showed.
original plan, this area here was not to be disturbed.
Oh,
It was disturbed, and he had to do this to satisfy.
okay, that's, okay, that's what we're going back to.
Okay.
What happened is, if he had left the woods the way it was, everybody had their buffer, that was it. You had a 100-foot buffer. And then all of a sudden, he came in one day and mowed the whole thing down. That was subsequent. Now, I'm trying to think if we did do a subsequent approval on that, or whatever. So we'll have to look at that. And I do remember that, because everything was gone.
And that's my only concern, is the buffer zone that I believe to say the Bible, because I thought this was approved. And then knowing that it was going to be subdivided, because when he clear cut, we knew there was potential of selling that
Yep.
property. It looks a lot better clear cut than it does looking like that Japanese whatever's growing out there.
Yep.
So in the long run, he was looking to build a home there, which I'm not totally opposed, but I think this plan right here should be the Bible that we all thought was the Bible.
No, that's,
And I think it should remain that way.
well, okay, what you bring up is, I do remember it. I'm trying to think if we did have a hearing and approved that. You could be 100% right. I do remember doing everything. I don't remember if we did a whole vote for that.
I can check, I have minutes at home.
Yeah,
I
we
have
can,
minutes.
we'll check here. That does bring another spin to this whole thing, is all of a sudden we're gonna have this mega buffer that, you know, gonna cost some bucks as opposed to the little one, so, that should be talked about during this whole, dealings what we're having here. No, I remember that.
And to be on the record, I'm not really opposed to a house going there, it's not,
No, I do remember the list of trees going against 18 Marion, that was, and your house up there on the hill.
and there is numbers and the type of trees and the,
Yep.
it says here 15 to 20-foot tall trees, they weren't little trees.
We'll look into that, John, you'll look at that.
Just to elaborate.
You didn't do the, I'm sorry, I just wanna ask, did you do the original?
No, Paul Brad Merkel did it.
Okay.
So, and we've had some brief conversations with Steve, so even if it didn't formally get adopted, we would like to work with Steve to make sure that what he wants for a buffer between, you know, our lot that we're working on and his lot, that he's satisfied. So, but I agree, I knew that there was something, I never saw this plan, I knew there was some after the fact thing, but I was never able to ferret out, the actual final plan of it, so now
Okay,
that
we
Steve
will-
has it.
That's
We
another,
can't call it a buffer, it's just gonna be like part of the landscape.
yeah, but
Right.
We have no problem though working with Steve and actually.
well, we're gonna figure a way out
Owner of 18.
legally how to do it so that it gets taken care of, because, you know, it did get just completely wiped out. I remember going up there after and looking at that, and it's like,
And my fear is if it is subdivided, which, like, I'm not totally against, but
Yeah.
my fear is that becomes somebody else's property, and they have the right to chop them trees down, it
Yep.
being their property, and we fought to get them trees to keep our buffer zone there, so that's my only concern.
well, there is something that can be said or done. It's not up to me, but I'll throw it out anyway, is, gee, maybe part of that buffer's transferred to you. I'll just throw that out.
Yep.
It's an interesting idea.
I know the guy in Canton won't like it, he won't like any of this, but still. And if you understood what I'm saying, Steve, is they don't need the land, give you the 10, 15 feet, and you keep your trees and no one can touch it.
You could do that by an easement or restriction of covenant or something.
We'd have to have something to that effect.
Well, he's not gonna really be able to do it, he doesn't have enough land to give up, I don't think, to do that.
Well, that's the,
Any questions for me, or?
no,
anything like that,
and
George?
they'll look at it, I assume you'll be able to, this is a what,
RB,
is this RB, John?
Residence fee,
So you need 30, no, 20.
20,000.
And you have more than enough, I think?
It's getting
It's
close.
close, yeah.
Close.
Okay.
Like I said, we're willing
That-
to work with
okay.
Steve, and I
We're
knew-
we're kinda jumping,
Yeah,
into
for
the-
one's a bit. for
but
one's a
only
bit.
because we're back on this plan, so.
And actually,
Bill.
Steve will tell you, he was here last night, and as he was leaving, I told him to come here and to tell this story to you, because I'm not sure the zoning board really can get involved with that.
The zoning board was, to me, it seemed like the zoning board didn't really know anything about what was going on as
No.
far as the planting and stuff like that, which that's
Yep.
really not their business.
Wasn't part
No,
of
theirs
it.
is,
So I went back to see that plan, and
Okay.
I don't know why that plan seems to be like a mystery plan.
Yeah,
It's
what
not
about
like-
that plan? Can we,
I think
Get it?
Carl's making a copy of it.
Well,
Oh, okay.
He took
gonna
it.
make a
Oh, okay.
copy.
He took it
It
and-
shouldn't be that, it shouldn't be a big mystery.
But I just looked at it,
Where that
he said,
came from.
Yeah, I think-
no, it shouldn't.
Public record, is it not?
so it says sheet 1 of 1, so it's something that's
It was after
not
the fact,
part
like Jack
of
said.
the-
Yeah.
Of the 5
Okay.
sheets, so.
But it had to be we might have done it as a modification. We will look and find out how it all happened, but they're gonna talk to you about
Mhm.
making you happy.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, not just me, I think all neighbors are kind
Yeah,
of.
well, on that particular, and getting rid of all the Japanese.
Everyone's already talked about that, I do have it on my property, but they mentioned that they'll take care of it in good faith, and I think they might in good faith, I'm not saying they won't do it,
I
so.
know, it's not necessarily part of it, it's been a main focus. Where'd it come from? I don't think Mr. Marini brought it from, with him, but I mean, I'm just curious.
Bill's got an idea.
It doesn't take
It could've
much
been a bird.
trying to dump something in
Think
there.
about the forest that was there
Yeah,
first.
no, I understand, but it's,
Cut, then a bird's traveling by and something falls off, I don't know where it came from. I was gonna ask you guys, is this unique in this section of Walpole, or is it all?
that's why I never seen it before. That's why I'm asking.
I can comment on this.
Okay.
It's actually, it's quite ubiquitous throughout Walpole right now. If you don't recognize it, you won't even know that you're seeing it, but I've seen it growing in a lot of the grass strips between the sidewalk and the road.
Oh.
I've seen it growing around mailboxes. It grows in the sun. It likes to grow along where maybe there's a water, because there's more sun there. And I just want to give one more fact about it, so the way it grows is it has rhizomes, which are like big roots. They can go 200 feet, and then they sprout. So you can be on your land, and they could be growing 50 feet away, and then all of a sudden, in the middle of your lawn, you start getting sprouts. And the reason it's so hard to get rid of is first, because all these sprouts that come up by the hundreds, and then second, those rhizomes store a lot of energy. So you have to cut them back for years before you actually kill the rhizome. Otherwise, they keep on sprouting.
See,
So-
you seem to
so-
know what you're talking about. My question would be, if they have to get rid of it, like, if they're to come on my property to get rid of it, what do they have to do? Dig down?
Well,
Right.
the usual method right now is to mow it down during the spring, so there's no green
Mhm.
that's storing energy, and then to use a herbicide, some herbicide to kill it. But it may take several years of applying herbicides. I mean, it has to be done by a professional who really understands how to do it. The other method is to cover it with tarps, cut it down, cover it with tarps, but you may need to keep it covered for a couple of years. And if the tarps aren't heavy duty, it'll go right through them, so it's a real problem. But if you look around in Walpole, I've seen it on Robbins Road, I've seen it on Elm Street. I'm amazed where you're seeing it right now. It's considered to be one of the most notorious pervasive plants that we're seeing in
I've seen it in
Massachusetts.
other towns.
Yeah,
I have seen.
so it's growing, and it actually grows more from the rhizomes than from seeds. So, and if you have any part of the plant that's traveled, that can actually sprout, I believe, is one of the ways which is why they don't want it in the garbage. You want to destroy it.
That's probably how it got here,
Yeah.
though. It came on someone's truck, somebody
Yep.
dumped something or something, it doesn't take much.
Doesn't-
Once it starts
So-
going,
All right.
say no, can't
Yep.
stop.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience?
Diane Morris, William Street, 69. I think where all that buffer zone and everything came in is when when he prepared the lot, he was supposed to, as you know, just prepare the lot for the condos. And he brought the trucks in around Christmas time, because I called the police to have them stop. They stopped one day, they came back the next day, continued cutting more. Finally, they put a kibosh on it after several, by then they had cut all the trees down. We had a private meeting with Mr., I say Mancini, but Mariani. We had a private meeting with him, and he was gonna put little saplings in. And we said, well, wait a minute, you took down 100-foot trees. Saplings will all be dead by the time those trees grow to protect our land, property and everything. Because now all of a sudden we had all the lights and the noise from 1A on our street. I have the light from the bank that used to shine right in my back window because he cut down all the trees. When we met with him, he was fined by the board for, as his theory was, I'll do what I have to do and I'll pay for it later. And he did get fined. He had to put up three fences. The fence on the end of Marion Street there, between the ranch and the condos. The Steve's fence, he extended Steve's fence, and the fence next door to the people on the property next to Steve got a white vinyl fence, and he put in all those trees. For a whole summer, the original owner of 18 Marion Street couldn't even open her windows because it was a sand lot, and all the sand was just blowing in her house all the time. And as far as that Japanese stuff, I was informed tonight by the woman who showed you the pictures, it's in my backyard because I abut her property. So it's in my backyard now, in the wooded area. And, which I want it out, like she does. But from what I understand, in order to get it, it's not just a matter of cutting it. It's either you have to dig it up to get the roots and dispose of the roots, however, or you have to use herbicides. And the herbicides will take several years. Is he going to comply with that treatment for several years and keep it cut down? Or is all of a sudden the landowner's going to be stuck with dealing with that? And what are the effects of the herbicide? What type of herbicides are they going to be using? Because there are pets and there's our kids. And my property, my husband never allowed any pesticides on our property to take care of our lawn. You'd know that if you saw my lawn, that we've never used pesticides. So the idea of having to have pesticides in herbicides in my backyard isn't one of the big things I'm looking forward to, because it would be against my husband's wishes. And unfortunately, he passed away. But I still tried to keep his wishes. He didn't like pesticides, herbicides.
Yeah, of
So
course.
it's something to discuss. How many years is he going to treat it?
Well, what's probably gonna happen, and it's gonna be in the next hearing, will be the subdivision, is he'll go in, he'll do the road, whether he builds a house or whatever, but it'll be up to the next people who are gonna plant the lawn, and they're gonna probably take care of it. Chances are, if they're gonna move in, and build a house, whatever they're gonna cost, they're not gonna let it go.
Yeah, because I'm not opposed to a house there. We were told when he built the condos, he was gonna put a house there at some point. But we fought him because of all the trees he cut down and how exposed he made
Yep.
us. So, that's all.
Okay, thank you. Next?
Christine Rivière-Molko, 23 Marion Street. Sorry, I'm French, my English is bad, donc if you need translate, my husband is here. I have a video the day of the old house, it's demolition, and lot of bamboo in our house and the other house. And after the demolition, he pushed everything on the top of the hill. But the bamboo is here before. Donc, sorry, I'm not a picture, but I just look now. And donc, I'm French. I like the natural solution. And for now, it's 5 years. The bamboo is here, and it's horrible with mosquito, tick, snake, rats. and nothing move for the summer. My solution is put in a fence and put some maybe 4 goats or something natural. No, some animal and eat the bamboo, because it's horrible.
I mean, it's either that or they would commission someone. Sorry, my name is Johannes Moto, 23 Marion Street, husband. They commission somebody to come out once a week, cut everything down, and make sure it stays cut down for the remainder of the year. Because when the bamboo comes back, it just keeps feeding the rhizomes and they just keep growing and spreading. So it's virtually the only solution is either the very expensive one of having a company come out and do that on a weekly basis, or putting a couple of goats in there that eat the stuff.
Yeah, goats or llama or something natural, not expensive, and it's a solution. The other side, we have the electrical plot, and the yard is 10 more better on the other side. So it's okay?
It's
Non,
fine, you're doing a
non, mais
good job.
du côté électrique, c'est bien
think-
plus propre.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Oh, sorry.
So, and I think right now the situation is that it's been a nuisance now for several years. It's getting to a point where it's going beyond nuisance and it becomes perhaps a danger for the environment, for us.
Since
We put out
2014.
traps This
And
year,
we
for the
push
first time, we've lived
everything.
there for 10 years now, we put out traps this year for rats. And we had 10 rats in a trap overnight. 10 rats in a trap overnight.
What's drawing the rats?
They're growing, I mean, they're thriving on the territory over there, I guess they get food somewhere,
Dunkin' Donuts probably.
and they're infesting the neighborhood. We had dead vipers on the street. We've never had snakes in our backyard before. Suddenly the stuff is showing up. So, it's beyond a nuisance now, we feel it's becoming a danger for us, in that environment. So the question is, what can be done? Is there a way to force the owner of that lot to actually take care of it and put appropriate measures in place to clean it up and keep it clean? That would be my wish.
Is the Board of Health aware of the rat issue?
Well, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Is what chances are the rats are coming from Dunkin' Donuts, chances are they're feeding off the dumpster, cause that's the only food place around, correct?
Well, there's the Dunkin' Donuts next door, right?
Yeah,
They have food,
that's what
I
I'm,
guess, that they throw out.
well, my point is, you can't blame Mr. Marini for the rats. The rats are they might be living there, but they ain't feeding there.
They gotta live somewhere too,
Yeah.
right? So that's the.
So but my suggestion is that you contact the Board of Health, tell them all of a sudden the rats are, and have them go look around the area. Dunkin' Donuts would be one, to see how they're storing their garbage, whether it's falling on the ground or
Okay.
or something like
Yeah,
that.
That's obviously.
Well, if you get rid of that, the rat's gonna go somewhere else. They'll move down to Leo's Pizza or something, or someone else's up and down the street, but,
Well, Leo's not doing that much business anymore, but yeah.
yeah, but it would, but that will help the rat problem. I mean, like I said, fair is fair. This isn't their fault.
No,
It's a nice place to live under the cover
it's
of,
just an abandoned lot, and, what happens is wildlife takes over, nature takes over,
yep.
and,
What's interesting you just said is, most hearings we have, I like the trees, I don't want a house.
yeah.
Now it's just the opposite. Get something in there to kill off the Japanese knotweed and.
We wouldn't mind
get rid
the
of it.
house there,
Yeah.
that's fine, just, clean it up.
But in regards to the rats or even the snake, they might know, I'm not sure on that.
Going after the rats.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true, the snake is feeding the rats or vice versa, so.
Who knows, yeah?
You can find it, like I said, you're best off talking to the Board of Health, because they
Yeah.
do all the inspections for that.
Yeah, that's an idea.
Hmm?
You shouldn't have rats, you should talk to the Board of Health.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be dealing with rats.
No, but the bamboo is a worse problem to the rats.
And my wife does the gardening at home, so for her the bamboo is the big thing.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we know who's gonna go that lot and start counting plants tomorrow, and it won't be John, it'll be one of his guys.
Yep,
The rats are
thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, next.
Hi, I'm Cassie Braithwaite at 1429 Main Street, Residence B. This microphone is much closer than it was yesterday. Let me just pull up my notes. So I will start with the thing you had referenced earlier about, so in October, I came home to some work being done on our property that I, as the treasurer of the HOA, had no clue about. None of us owners did. And so when we reached out to the management company, who happens to be Marini, the developer, we were told that John received notice from the Walpole Planning Board that they were unhappy with a few things on the property and gave him a list of things they wanted to completed, which later finding out was from the engineer, with the list of things that hadn't been done from what should have been done before. But I continually asked who at the planning board, like why it was requested, and all of this, and I kept just saying that because minimal amount of work had been done on our property, and so that way they were requesting that to be done, so that way they could build in the back. I asked who was paying for it, and was told John was assuming some of the cost. He was being nice and assuming some of the cost, but some of it was being billed back to us. And they just kept referencing how he was doing this work for us because you guys said he had to. It wasn't, so that was back in October of last year, in November, when I was asking about the money. In April of this year, we had our unit owners meeting, and it finally came out that it wasn't that you guys had requested for him, that he admitted that it was work that hadn't been done, that was supposed to be done previously. So I continually was inquiring about who is paying for it, and he admitted that he charged us for it, and we still haven't seen that come out of the finances to us. I've asked for line-by-line items of this, and I still have yet to get that from them too. So I obviously have some concerns about anything being done with this because it's costing me money, and now we are running at a deficit for our HOA, and so it's just going to once again be increased, which we're paying quite a bit for things that we don't even know, and now I'm wondering why. Some other things on that list of...
I'll stop you for a moment, because I had the little battle early on. Typically, condo associations own the whole thing, and they're the ones, the owners, they have to sign off. And I guess in this particular instance, Mr. Appen told me that you guys have a master deed where it allows him to do that, okay? So therefore, in my opinion, I'm not a lawyer, but I'll fight to the end for this one, is it's all on Marini. You guys have nothing, since you have nothing to do with what he can do, you should have nothing to do with any of the work he's gonna do, it's gonna cost.
But we have an HOA, and it states clearly in the in the master deed, it doesn't say he can do anything to our property. It says he can split, take part of the property.
Yeah, but he's doing this for his own being.
So, but the things on the list where he was supposed to have done before he built.
That was him. It wasn't a condo association, there's a guy who built it.
Yes.
It should have been done.
Yes.
before.
So I'm just clarifying that.
Yeah,
Yes. That.
But what I'm saying now, in my opinion, is because they've taken you and moved you over here, anything he's gonna do now that's gonna cost money for the condo is all out of his pocket.
It should be, but it hasn't been.
Well, I'm telling you, that's the way it should be if he's kept you guys out.
Yes.
Now, my opinion is, and I'll fall back and I'll see if I get Mr. Alpin to let go. If he's gonna bill you, my opinion, then I think we should go to our attorney and say, well, you should have been on the application as owners. You you don't have the right to,
Can't
you
do it
shouldn't have to
both
pay
ways.
for something, but you can't have the say in it. We'll go back to no taxation, no representation crap. The same thing here, is either you're 100% out or you're 100% in. There's no way about it.
Yes, it makes it very difficult because they are a management company, and so they are the ones. It just happens, and we don't ever see bills or anything.
How come, now as a condo association, I'm going too far.
I am trying to get it changed, and
You guys can vote and vote it out, right?
You're-
We've
trust
been down
me.
that road with, I had a guy deal with, but, I'm throwing that out, Chris.
And I just want to ask a question through the
Yep.
through the board. I wonder if the condo owner would like Mr. Marini to make improvements to the property in order to abide by the decision, or if she'd rather him not do those things to make sure that it abides by the decision. If it's at his sole cost.
Oh, he's required from day one to do it, now he's trying to do this. So my whole point is, you said they're not owners, you haven't the master deed. I said, fine, that's how you present it to me. But in my opinion, I know I'm going way beyond this hearing, is you can't be charging them because they live there.
Yeah, that's beyond the hearing, but I guess my question.
But I can make it a little difficult. I mean, I'm getting a little tired of hearing everybody here. I could name another guy who did the same thing, tried to do it with me. It doesn't go very far. Is if in fact they're gonna be paid, have to come out of their fees, okay, then they're owners, then they should have to sign off the application.
That's part of the master deed. And to answer that question, but through you, I would like him to talk with us and ask our opinions about these things before making decisions. Because the only time he talks to us is after 8 months of continual questions about these things without getting answers. And he shows up to a meeting he wasn't technically even supposed to be at, and then gets angry at us because we won't sign off on this, and then leaves. So I would like communication before just making improvements on our property.
You just raised the point is, I'm looking your way is, yeah, you guys are condominium owners. He can split this off, but to do anything different than on the plan, he would have to get permission from the condo
You have to
association.
vote, the board votes.
Do you agree with that, Chris?
I think that's an interesting private property question that I
Well, the
don't
thing
know the
is,
answer to, so.
So, but it sounds like
You know,
I could get legal involved for him doing things
No, I
that
mean,
have not gone to a board.
as you can tell, I cut to the chase, and I don't like the BS going both ways. But very simple is, if you guys are condo owners, and he's proposing improvements. Now, he has the right, according to Mr. Alpin, to keep you guys out of this because he can slice it off. But now you own the thing, you're making improvements. If we told him he had to paint the building green, I don't think we can do that. We could say that, but it would have to come from the owners, so.
Yep.
I would think that we would get some type of approval from the condos, what they're doing.
It's a private property question.
I understand, but remember, I'm up here, you're down there. Life can get very,
Understood. I think it's in my client's best interest to work with the association and make sure that they're happy.
I think it's in your client's best interest to change the way he operates.
That's not gonna happen.
no, that's the way they, you know, say my first rodeo with Mr. Marini, and he claims he's a little country bumpkin, but he sits on the zoning board and he has this big Marini. I know what John does, and I had the same thing with, over on Plimpton Street. You weren't part of that, correct? That was a long time ago. Mr. Glosser, you weren't either, John, right? He had a buffer, and he put his bulkheads right next to the buffer. Then he mowed it down. Well, how am I gonna dig the hole after he mowed it down? He goes by he'd rather beg for forgiveness than ask permission. And I went through that with him before, and I told him, very simple, I built enough buildings in Boston, you can do it from here. But he always had an excuse, and I see the same thing again. Well, this time, it's going to be done right. If I myself go a little over, and you don't get it because of me, well, they can take us to court. But you don't have to do that. I think this is too much gaming being played. I know. It's like, wish you guys, when you walk out of here, you go, once again, it's John, I've done it to you before, but you understand, it's your client, but I understand now that it's coming to light, yeah, you guys should have a say to it. So we'll start with John Glosser's plan and what they proposed, get you guys to say that's good or whatever, and move on from there, okay?
I want to just, a few things that, when you were talking about like building a buffer, on my side, it's right that you'd have to put it up on the hill for it to be any worth, just because of how it is so low down in there. Plus, if it's put on our property, it will take away the very little property I have. And they kept referencing that the backyard is for the businesses, but in the master deed, it actually states it's for the condo owners, and the businesses can use as long as it doesn't interfere with our lives. And so taking away that whole back lot and then taking away my backyard is just not something. And then anything changing added to an expense to us, or a future expense to us, is something I'd like to avoid.
So you understand about buffers is everybody thinks you're supposed to, you could put 50-story building, you can't put a tree that high.
Oh, I agree.
It's meant the depth. as
I
opposed
don't
to
want
the-
anything built back there personally.
But
but if
that's
I
where it's
understand
gonna
there's
come.
So
communication.
you'd rather look at the new house, the potential new house, right? That's a,
Well,
I mean, no, I'd rather have something. I'd rather have
You're
nothing.
gonna be on the
there.
second floor anyway, so there's nothing ever gonna grow up. So I understand what
Exactly.
you're doing is now, it raises another point, is you're part of it, is what's gonna be along that fence line, so to speak. Okay, that makes sense.
And so some other concerns I have is we've been talking about that bamboo and how this project is going to take a few years likely to be able to get this done. John keeps saying he's trying to split this up because he wants to retire soon. So what happens when this project gets started and they do this and then he chooses to retire? Like, how does it go from there? Like, those are some of our concerns. He's the one that said that to us. And so, like, usually when people are talking about retiring, it's within a year or two is kind of, so I have that concern. And then you mentioned the flooding in our backyard, the drainage system. It does pool and puddle quite a bit. I see it from my backyard, and that's why half of the yard never has growing grass never has grass, and it's just mud because it does pool. Granted, he says he claims he fixed some of that, but the moisture in the basement there is a lot of moisture. We have to have dehumidifiers running down there, and it's probably because it is so much drainage that goes back there. And so building something up there, runoff will go right down
Well,
into
just so you
there.
understand is, no, that you can't have any more come toward you. Matter of
Yes.
fact, 99% of the time you get less. It's designed, so the only runoff you would get, instead of coming from all the way to Steve's property down to you guys, would be from the road down to the fence, which would cut probably 80% of the runoff.
I like the goat idea. But something, I thought this may be totally off, but it could be a great, like, school community project to kind of figure out how to handle back there. I'm just saying, you could donate that property to, like, I don't know, a community garden, I think would be great back there. I think, I think my point is made that the things that he was supposed to be done back in 2014 or whenever this project started still hasn't been done now. And so any of these promises that they're making, again, if it wasn't done before, he can't even get that part. And so it's just very frustrating and wasting all of our time. But I'm also very much afraid if nothing gets done back there, what happens when that property now has to go to us owners, and if we have to start doing treatments back there for whatever reason. So that's obviously a concern of mine too, because I can't afford that. I wouldn't be living in a condo if I could afford that kind of stuff. And so I feel very mixed.
I'm gonna say something, I'll probably say it's a personal matter, but to me, if it's written in the master deed that he owns that, he controls that, that would be his, and it shouldn't be up to you
I
guys.
think it's written basically that we own it, but he can take it away from us.
Yeah, okay.
So it doesn't mean he owns it, unfortunately, because I believe we're the ones paying taxes on it. It's basically, this is a way for him to not have to
Probably.
pay taxes, but then him to be able to get the lot back later.
The reality is, I think everybody knows it's worthwhile to build a house there, and I think,
Yeah, and I'm willing
it makes
to
sense for
agree
everything.
if anyone would be willing to communicate.
I got,
so I think this is the same one that you
Yeah,
looked
I
at,
couldn't
but
read
you,
it.
yeah, it was a bad copy,
okay, and
so
I
I
can
don't know.
ask you, it says, of course it's not dated, dear, board, please accept this letter of support from the owner of comments on the main condominium. I have reviewed the plans for 1429 Main Street LLC, and pleased with the plans to develop the back portion of 1427 Main. Such development will maintain an otherwise underutilized vacant parcel of lands. I'm satisfied with the landscaping by the applicant. And it's signed, and I can't read the names, but it's units 1, 2, and 3, which are commercial.
He's the commercial unit owner and he lives in Westwood. But he does own the bottom, the commercial space.
It's funny, it's 3 people signed it, but it's only one
You're
guy
saying
that owns it.
Marini or whoever the
Oh,
owner is?
the 1, 2, 3 is,
One
that's
owner.
one person.
But I got 3 signatures on here.
I can't see the signature, so I don't know. But it's, there was one other unit owner who signed, and then the rest of the unit owners refused and told him, and then he stood up and marched out.
I'm just bringing this up, my own opinion is if you don't have a date, this could have come from 6 years ago, and I can't read names, so, but anyway, I'll put this in the thing for us.
No, it's
Oh,
closed in
that's-
the subdivision. I just
Okay,
wanted you to-
oh, that's in the subdivision, okay.
Any questions?
No, I'm all set. Okay, anyone else with the site plan, okay? Or, ma'am?
My concerns are not at the level that been presented here, but just to voice my, I'm Renee Maloof, 1 Marion Street. So I'm at the beginning of Marion Street, and the development, the property, that the cul-de-sac will be at the end of Marion Street. My concern is that the numbering of this new home, once it's built, because about a couple of years ago, I got a bunch of phone calls and letters about my home being on the market for sale, and I noticed at the end, there was like a Remax sign on the lot, so apparently they put the lot up for sale for a period of time. And once they took the lot, they removed it from the market, the realtors start calling saying, oh, you know, let us sell your home, we see that you took it off the market. And so, I mean, I had some consternation. At first I thought somebody had my title or something, but come to find out, I went and looked up my address, and, you know, you had a picture of my house and then some specs for like developing like a cul-de-sac along with the picture of my house. So, and it said 1 Marion Street EXT extension. So apparently that's the address that, I just want to make sure that whatever is built there isn't given the address of 1 Marion Street EXT, because it'll just, I mean, that'll be a nightmare,
No,
confusion.
it won't. As a matter of fact, Kyle can speak to that, because he numbers the,
Okay.
we can pick a number now.
We're jumping a little bit in the comments for the subdivision. I commented and said that the title of this Marion Street, we want that in parentheses, and we want the plans to be very clear that the new road is Marion Street. There will be no Marion Street extension, and it will, I'm not exactly sure what number it will have, but it will not be 1.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and we do assign the numbers.
Okay, great.
So,
And ma'am, just so you understand, is in the day of Zillow and all this stuff, they got people just doing this. There was a piece of property on Summer Street, and it was like 2 Summer Street extension. I couldn't find it. All right, I said, where is this?
Yeah.
Because they just type in. Well, what it was a 2-lot subdivision called Lot 1 and Lot 2. And that happened to be by the Durbers. Remember that? No. Yeah, remember I told you where's that?
Oh, yes.
What happens is these people, they they see the plot plan and it said Lot 1 and 2, so they call it they call it 1 Summer and 2, that's all they do is grab it. So it isn't the realtors, it's people that are not paying attention to when they put this online.
Yeah,
So it is kind of common, I think.
okay. All right, well, I just figured if I brought it up to enough
Yep.
people enough, that
Yep.
somebody would.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
All right, we'll leave this open for now so that we can get into the other one. Yes, Phil?
Jack, if I may I just want to make one clarification on the revocation of Japanese knotweed. I wasn't necessarily recommending that you use a herbicide, but anyone who's trying to get rid of it should consult with the UMass Extension Services, because they have good guidance, and the Mass Audubon. I will say that both sometimes do recommend herbicides because it's so difficult to remove it. And in a situation where it's across multiple properties, getting it off your property is not gonna get it out of the area, because it's, these the row zones are growing, as I said, up to 200 feet. And they can, if you wanna mow it, mowing is a possibility, but you really have to mow it every single week. You can't even miss a week, because once you get green leaves, it's starting to feed the row zone, and they will live for 3 years even if you mow it. So it's very difficult to eradicate, and it takes working, again, I think consulting with experts is to do that. When you have a small manifestation, it's easier to do things like just mowing. When you have a large one like we're talking about, and across property boundaries, maybe growing in gardens, and, it's gonna be a challenge.
Jack, the green cards are back on that, except I'm missing one for, Jenny O'Callaghan. I don't have a receipt for her.
Okay, do we have a white paper on her before we open up?
She's part of the condo 1429.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Should be giving these to Miss Kate.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't mind. Thinking.
No,
Send them right
have
down
to.
to Kate. She's looking
Doesn't
for
matter, you
Jenny
don't
O'Callaghan.
mind.
Does she need that paper or no?
Enough
She can
with
take
doing
it.
someone else's job
Yeah.
for you. All right, well, look for, okay, now, with the hour being after 7:16, we have a
Thank you.
application from John Marini, 345 Naponton Street, Canton, for a definitive subdivision located at 1429 Main Street, lot, map 40, lot 149, with frontage along Main Street, and located at the end of Marion. Said plan is entitled Definitive Subdivision, Marion Street Extension, single-family residential subdivision, dated August 10th, 2021, by Glosser Engineering. The property is part of a condominium created by the Master Deed in Book 35022, page 443, paragraph 25 of the Master Deed provides that the declarant, the applicant has the ability to convey a portion of the condominium property for any purpose. Said hearing's being held in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 81Y. Okay, and with that being said, we're open. The question I did look up the other day, 81Y, what's that? I don't know what that has to do with this. Something about streets and public streets and taking them over.
It's an extension of a road, and a definitive subdivision that shows a road, and that's the section that we're applying under.
Yeah, but what I read, it didn't seem to, I've never had that before. It just talked about a road that the town had, to something, that's why I'm a little foggy on it. I didn't print it out tonight, unfortunately. But, we will,
I did.
oh, Kate did, okay. Thank you. All right, now this is 81T,
They keep going. That's typically what we do.
81W, 81Y. In any city or town with subdivision control is in effect, no public way shall be laid out, accepted, and no municipal service shall be constructed in a way to serve the land unless it appears on a plan of subdivision approved under such law, except by accordance with affirmative vote of 2/3 of those present at a meeting of city council or a town meeting. That's where I kinda like, that's the one, when, I don't think I read the rest of it, but, we have gone by, 81T, Kate, is where every person submitted a definitive plan of land to the planning board for determination, it is not required, shall give written, determination that approval is not required, shall give written notice to the clerk. So it's, if it's not an A and R, so, I guess the question just come out, we have why, don't know, I won't belabor that, but if you would like to fill us in next time.
Sure, absolutely, not a problem.
Okay, unless you wanna, well, it's substantially close, I think. Okay, with that being said, the hearing is open, Kate is checking the cards, and so everybody understand, I think, I don't wanna say we beat it to death, but you're gonna see what they propose for the road, and I think all the residents have given us their concerns on what their real concerns are, is actually Japanese, and whatever goes on with the condo association. So with that being said, John, if you'd like to present.
Yeah, so just for the record, John Glossa, Glossa Engineering, 46 East Street in East Walpole. I think, everybody knows where the site is, so we don't have to sort of go over that again. The existing conditions plan is the same plan that the site plan is based on, so I'm not sure that you really want to go over that again. So now we'll get to the heart of the matter, which is the proposed subdivision. As you can see, here's Marion Street. Marion Street ends at this property line for this piece of property. And what we propose to do, Marion Street's a 40-foot layout, so we're going to widen it, the layout to the 46-foot layout, and we're going to provide a cul-de-sac with a radius, I think it's a little bit, it's a radius of 48 feet, where your requirements are 52 feet. And then it's going to circle around and hit here with a return with a radius right around
10?
with a radius of 10 feet. So those were two waivers that were noted on the plans. But what that does is it creates the frontage for a lot. We're calling this Lot 2. It's 20,740 square feet. And as we said earlier, that's the Residence B, so we need 20,000 square foot lot. And it creates frontage, which we need 125 feet. In this case, we're providing the 125 feet at the street layout, and then it needs 100 feet at the setback, and then it needs to have a circle of radius, of a diameter of 100 feet that touches the frontage and stays within the lot. So those are the zoning requirements, and we meet all of the zoning requirements. And obviously, as we talked about at this previous hearing, to do this, we are also creating a second lot where the building is, with the lot line parallel with the rear of the building, 26 feet away from the building, and then turning and following that southerly lot line, existing lot line, up to the cul-de-sac, so that there is frontage for that lot on this street, thus avoiding the, and I don't really know if it's real or not, but this notion or this requirement that there's no such thing as a one-lot subdivision. So this is a two-lot subdivision.
There's only one court case that I read.
Just an engineer, I'm not.
But I guess there is one court case, John, that came up, and I read this many years ago, and I don't know. It's not relevant, but it was just a weird one in Nantucket or something like that.
Yeah, it's a little bit of, it's a different circumstance.
Yeah, but
So
Is that
the bottom line is we don't need that strip, but we put it there to make people comfortable. But if the board doesn't want to see the strip, it's not a problem.
Yeah, it's not really necessary for either one of the lots, obviously, to meet the zoning requirements, other than we just wanted to avoid this, and, there was previous people who worked in the town hall who had actually, I had gone over this earlier and was adamant that I couldn't have a one-lot subdivision by creating frontage with a cul-de-sac. So that's why we did it. If for some reason you say we don't need that, I think we would gladly take it off, because I think it sort of creates this, but maybe not, we'll see.
Can you, I'm sorry, before you move on, just say again,
What?
where is that? And do you have it in a schedule, this strip lot?
It's not a strip lot, so the lot one, which would be the condo
Okay,
lot, Okay, so just it comes up here,
Uh-huh,
goes parallel with the rear of the building and 26 feet away from the building
Uh-huh.
to a point right here.
okay,
And then up to the cul-de-sac, over 3 feet, and
okay,
then back out to Main Street like
Okay.
that.
I
So
see.
it has this little.
I see,
shade,
okay,
whatever you want.
okay.
I'll,
So,
okay, it's easy, we're gonna keep going one at a time, we usually do it, but since you brought it up, Kyle's our professional land surveyor, so could you give us what you were gonna say?
Yes, Mr. Chair, it's actually not that strip that I have commented on in my letter. It's the reserve strip that's between the cul-de-sac and the existing Marion Way that I don't like. That can remain, it's an oddity, it can remain, I don't have any opposition to that little 3-foot sliver that goes up to this cul-de-sac. It's the fact that there's a reserve strip between the created cul-de-sac and the existing Marion Way that I don't like, because it's gonna leave a piece of land in there that is not laid out as a road. And I have commented that in my comments. That deed reference should be included in the subdivision. It should be laid out, and there should not be any foolishness with reserve strips.
Well, there is no reserve strip. Mr. Marini
Shows
owns both
right
of those
here.
pieces of
But
property.
you don't list it on the subdivision. You list it as an abutter. And it's not, the reference is not listed on the cover sheet.
I think we put it on there the way it's shown at the registry of deeds, so if you wanted me to take it off, we're just trying to describe it the way it's shown at the registry of deeds, but he owns both of those pieces of property.
If you leave it, the deed reference should be listed and the line should go away,
I
it
think
should
the
be
deed reference
merged.
is the same, but I'll take care of that with the town engineer. But- So just for the board, so what the discussion with Carl and myself, so when they laid out Marion Street, they stopped it, is it 1 foot or 2 foot, you know? it
1
doesn't-
foot.
They stopped at 1 foot from this piece of property, so that this guy would not be able, I guess, to extend Marion Street. Maybe they didn't get along or whatever, but Marini, and I think even the person before Marini bought that, and so it's really one, for all intents and purposes, it's one piece of land. That reserve strip doesn't exist, but the words exist on the deed and on the plan, or maybe on the plan. I don't think they exist on the deed. But if he owns both of them, how can he can't reserve it from himself. Stop talking.
No, get rid of it.
I like to stop talking better.
I like being here late.
Okay, so I'm just gonna go to the, so A, there's no sewer here, right? So this part of the lot back here will have the house and the septic system, so there's not gonna be any connection to the sewer. I've done a lot of soil testing in this neighborhood, and also did soil testing for this groundwater infiltration system. So it's gravel soil here, it looks like it's like a cut down esker, it looks like it was an esker at one time, a big hill of sand and gravel. Some of it's been removed, but there really isn't any issue with the soils. So the water line ends, the water main ends here with a hydrant. So rather than make this more complicated than it needs to be, since it's ending with a hydrant anyway, we're simply taking the water service off of the water main here and bringing it into the site for use for the new house. And then drainage, there's no formal drainage right nearby, and so what we propose to do is we have a double catch. So everything on this cul-de-sac is gonna pitch in this direction here. We have a double catch basin here. We're gonna take that with a 12-inch pipe and run it through a grit and oil separator, and then into an infiltration basin here. All of this was designed, as your regulations say, as if we had to use the Mass DEP stormwater management regulations. So it meets all of that stuff, by your regulations. The other, thing that I'd like to point out is, so there will be, because this is much higher than this, well, maybe not much higher, but there'll be a bit of a retaining wall right here, to sort of retain the, soil that needs to be put underneath the cul-de-sac to create the cul-de-sac. And then the other thing, and then this is what, the town engineer was saying, and what I had pointed out to the town engineer at one time, as the chairman was saying. So right now, you can see from the contours, you know, all of the water, or most of the water from this site flows down, and because of the way that condo building was built and dished out behind it, that's where that water ends up now. When we build this, as you said, most of that water, probably even more than 80%, probably even 90 or maybe 95%, is not gonna end up there anymore. Now it's gonna go into this underground infiltration basin, which is designed for 100-year storms. So nothing, you know, less water gets to the back of that building now. So that should be a benefit to every owner in that building. And then, I don't think there's a profile. So really, we don't have a huge profile because we're only really sort of profiling the cul-de-sac here. So really, we're just dropping down 20% from the end of Marion Street, and as I said, down to that catch basin there. And then we're just showing the profile of the catch basin, the drainage pipe, the oil and grit separator, and then the infiltration basin here. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. It's, you know, not really a very complicated project to get constructed. It's, you know, sort of just simply bringing in the water line, putting in the drainage, and putting in the cul-de-sac. Nothing's really all that.
Okay, I'll read the comments from the boards that we received. From the police department, the police department does not have any public safety concerns in relation to traffic in this case. Officer Luke Powell. Next one, Board of Health. The Board of Health is May 17th, 2022 meeting voted unanimously. They approved the plan, and they would like to reiterate their comments from May 19th, 2021, which stated prior to construction, the proposed septic plan must be submitted to the to the health department. Okay. That was a good one. They actually approved it, as opposed to we like it. So you don't have to go back. Here we go. Fire department. Deputy Chief Paul Barry, dated May 17th. The fire department reviewed the application, and we have the following comments. With the applicant committed to providing the cul-de-sac and maintaining the pavement requirements of subdivision rules and regulations, we offer no objections to this application. We request the application conduct a turn analysis of the cul-de-sac using our turn radius document. The swept path analysis should show the tower trucks overhang and show the proposed light pole and any other proposed plantings are set outside the overhang. So, you done that yet?
No, but I will, because I was unaware of that.
Okay, and let me see, I just want, okay, we sent it to Building Inspector, Community Development, Concom, Sewer and Water, and Tree Ward. Now, that brings me a question, since we haven't got anything for conservation, are they gonna deem this?
Well, we're not within 100 feet of any wetlands.
Yeah, but don't they have to say, they typically will respond, we have no comments, not on this jurisdiction.
You want me to have them say?
Yeah, I can ask Landis for it, but this is the first time, we've had them in the past, John, it just kinda closes the loops on some of
Yeah.
these things. Usually she's good about that, so maybe, and, she hasn't done it in sewer and water.
Okay.
Better get them now before Jimmy gets on. Oh, Hamilton. And tree warden, rec department, but I I guess, around the trees, but typically, like I said, conservation, land is very good about closing the loop for us.
Okay.
All right, so, and now Kyle, I'll let Kyle do his comments.
Mr. Chair, I provided a memo to the board dated May 17th. There are some 30 comments or so, and as usual, there's a lot of detailed comments or whatever you want to reference it as, minutiae, plan revisions. I'll point out the more highlighted comments and more important ones. Number 6, it says under deed reference, list book 3240, 450, page 315, the reserve strip, which I spoke of earlier, should be included with the subdivision and laid out as a subdivision way. That's a deed reference you have, John.
Yeah, and not to beat a dead horse, but surely the intention is that that reserve strip is part of the roadway, right? We're not trying to reserve anything. The draftsman and myself simply decided not to, hide that at one point that it was listed that way on the plan at the Registry of Deeds, that's all.
We should likely discuss this further.
Yeah, we can, take it off or add a note. I just, I don't like, sometimes we miss things and people are like, oh, you didn't put that on there on purpose.
You gotta be dealt.
John,
Well, we have a
we
difference.
like a happy Kyle. you know?
We have a difference of opinion here, John. I said, I think we have a difference of opinion, and we need to work that out, because I don't think that the reserve strip, I don't care if it's on a registry plan or not, if he owns it, it should be included as part of the new way and laid out if this thing is approved.
I think it, I'll double check, but I think it's all one deed, so I think it is part of the application.
Okay. My comment 17 requests that there's a waiver request for a 10-foot property line radius. Normally a 30 is provided. I've actually suggested that we get rid of the radius because it comes very close to the curb line over there. And that's another thing we can develop a solution to that, and said there can be some sort of geometry change there, a straight line into the corner that might serve better and leave a little bit more room from the curb to the right-of-way. I respect, Mr. Chairman, Sewer and Water hasn't commented, but I have had past discussions with the Sewer and Water Superintendent where they want some kind of an easement from that cul-de-sac out through the front property, the mixed-use property, to Route 1A. They can comment on that specifically, but that has been discussed in the past. Then we jump all the way to the stormwater report, and essentially I agree with everything that Mr. Glosser presented on this, and that the stormwater system is actually quite robust. The soils are great. But on page 4 and 5 of the report, it has the town as the operator of the drainage system, which is not in harmony with the rules and regulations. In that comment, I've noted that section 4D9 places the responsibility for maintenance. It covenants it to the lawn owner on which it sits. You can vary that if you want, but that's the normal procedure. And I guess that would be a waiver too, if it were to be asked.
That's fine. That's fine.
So-
It's just the way it's usually, we'll do it the way it's usually set up, is that the homeowner's taking care of the amenities, which would be the oil and grit and oil and grit separator and the infiltration basin, but the town, I think, wants to take care of the catch basin.
Yeah, I mentioned that in my letter, and I said that, the catch basin and the pipe going from
Yeah.
it would be the town's responsibility, and then once you cross off the right-of-way onto private property, it's generally covenanted to the lot owner.
Okay, and we have the easement documents for other subdivisions that we can tailor to this one.
If there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them out of my comments, but the remainder of it is, getting things on the plans to agree, and I've asked them to remove the planning board endorsement notes on the detail sheet, so you don't have to spend all night signing it. Ask for update of the detail sheet, things of that nature, that seem to occur in just about every review.
You want a happy Jack, that's what you want.
That's right. So that's
Happy
it,
board,
Mr.
you
Chairman.
want this. Okay, thank you. All right, I'll open the board, and then I'll start the other way. Sarah?
Okay, where the cul-de-sac matches up to the existing existing Marion Street, and you have it, the width is increased? Is that just to comply, like, so
With
you don't
your-
have to ask for a waiver? Or,
Well, in my experience, we always try to comply with your regulations as much as we can.
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense. Like,
Yeah.
why not just keep it at the 40 feet?
right,
But we try to show it as 46 feet so that we try to limit the waivers to the absolute minimum that we need.
okay. I mean, I'm glad that you showed that you can do it, but I would be more in favor of a better design. You know, maybe part of that is geometry you can work out with
Yeah, I
Carl
think
on,
what the
on the
town-
radius down there, but even on the, I guess, western side, if that can be improved.
I think what the town engineer is saying is he would like to have a little more space between the right-of-way line and the pavement. So by doing that would help.
Okay. Okay. And then one of my questions was about fire, but I heard the comment, so it sounds like fire is okay with it, and you anticipate that this radius will pass the turning truck?
It's the same radius, the pavement radius, we didn't ask for a waiver for that. So the
Okay.
88-foot pavement radius, it's the same. I understand what he's saying, if there's the truck overhangs a lot in the front, so you have to be careful that you don't put a light pole or a hydrant or something
Yeah.
for that,
Okay,
that impedes the truck. So we'll look at that. I'll do exactly what he said. I'll put his template on there and make sure everything is far enough away from the pavement so he won't, so the driver won't hit something unintentionally.
okay. And so you kind of talked about it, but I don't think it's shown on the plans, the proposed dwelling location. But could you just speak to, like, approximately where you're thinking and especially how that might impact, additional trees or things that would border the Lynch property
So
and the septic? I think that's all supposed to be in that general location.
I can just tell you that the side setbacks are 15 feet and the rear setbacks 30 feet. So this building is most likely going to be, somewhere in this location here.
Okay,
And the septic, I think we had already worked it out, I forget now. I think the septic is in this location here.
okay. Okay.
So
I thought you mentioned the
actually
septic
did
should-
the septic
okay.
system for number 18, and that's in this location back here. So we know that the soils are good there, and we're just trying to, sort of lower everything to a reasonable elevation back here.
Okay.
Those,
So with that plan, it seems like you still can be a good neighbor and provide some, screening, additional trees or whatever along that back property and not interfere with.
right,
Yeah.
right,
Okay.
right. We'd love to work with Steve to work that out, and I do, as the chairman said, I do recall that. I wasn't involved with it, but I sort of recall hearing about that
Mhm.
sort of little bit of fiasco when the project started and stopped and started and stopped and stopped and started or whatever, so. But, as Chris said, there's ways to work this out where, that have
Kind of
teeth.
easement or, yeah, because you don't really have much land to give away.
Yeah, well, it's 20,000 square foot lot.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Okay. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, could you just show again on the street frontage? So on, this is on sheet, the
on
sheet
the
two.
layout sheet, I think they,
So, excuse me. So lot one, would lot one own all the way then down to the separation between lot two and the bottom there?
Yes.
on the other side of the cul-de-sac.
Yeah, so
So
it's
we don't-
kind of, it's a little bit odd.
Yeah.
It's this plus this and around like that.
And so what would be the total frontage all the way around the cul-de-sac then? That would be
Uh,
A lot.
260?
A lot,
Yeah, so it's much more than 125 feet.
much more than 125.
Substantially more?
Yeah. So 200,
Substantially more.
looks like
And
200.
then the other requirement is that, you know, from here, 30 feet back from here until we're gonna hit this lot line here, that has to be 100 feet, but that's clearly, I didn't bring a scale with me,
Yeah.
but this is 124 feet here, so that's
Cool.
clearly gonna easily meet the 100-foot, so.
and you were doing that, you said, because you also wanted to have, you wanted to make sure that there's no mistake on the frontage? What was the,
Doing what?
Because
We
he doesn't
need-
wanna offer to this board that he's creating a one-lot subdivision.
subdivision, I see.
That's why we created the little tail to come up there, so that, I mean, this lot has its frontage.
Right, on Main Street.
But if it's if it abuts the subdivision proposed roadway, then it could be deemed or
I
is
see.
deemed part of the subdivision. If the planning board is of the mind that that's not required, we have no problem, you know, sort of maneuvering that. But there is another facet to that, and that is if you look at the site there's a row of arborvitae's that runs, an existing row of arborvitae's that runs all the way up to Marion Street. So you might want to consider leaving it the way it is and having those arborvitae's in that strip so that they're not on the residential
It's on-
part of it and they can be controlled under the special permit.
Right.
Under your site plan approval.
Right, okay. Okay, and then, as far as the snow removal then, so there is that, if you look on, this would be sheet 3. So there's that, the proposed wall, the safety fence on the cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
So, and then there's that drop off. So, is that gonna be a problem for snow plowing removal? Or you're just gonna swing the snow around?
No,
In
well,
my experience at a cul-de-sac, they simply push it to the back of the cul-de-sac.
this is gonna be an accepted road, so it's
Yeah.
up to the town. This won't be snow stores like you have on the site plan.
Yeah.
So whatever the guys come down and blow it in, they're gonna do it.
Yeah, I mean,
Straight on.
I don't, you know, I plow snow, I don't plow for the town, but, in my experience, they just push it like this. And all the cul-de-sacs, they just push it all to the back. And, you know, they'll, let it pile up, I mean, if it gets piled up too high, they'll take a front end loader in there and even push it up even higher, so. I
So,
don't think the wall really comes into play with the way it's plowed.
so there really is no room there, or very little room to do any plantings on the top of that.
No, we
it's-
showed the street trees,
Yeah,
you know.
but that's, yeah.
Well, I mean, there could be arborvitae or something like that.
Right.
Added to the plan.
Okay.
So I think we're gonna take another little bite of that apple we can do that on the site plan.
Right.
And as was sort of astutely pointed out, I think that Mr. Marini is gonna have to work with the owners there too, because it's gonna be on their property. Right, because your chairman, and again, I think he's correct, you could put it on the private property or the residential property, but you're gonna need something to make sure that it's, as you said, that the homeowner just doesn't come out with a chainsaw and take it down, so. We'll
If
work on something.
If was a key word you just said, John.
Okay. I try to stay away from keywords.
I should say. All right.
And then I'll just make one comment that as far as the Japanese knotweed, when the project is actually done and you're doing all the construction, you're gonna be you're gonna be digging up a large part of that property, and that's probably that's the best way to get rid of knotweed. The only challenge is that's not gonna happen early enough.
No.
In other words, that's probably a year or more away, so.
It is the best way to
But-
get rid of it.
but
You
then-
have to then be careful where you bring it,
You
because you're
do.
bringing it
That doesn't
somewhere
help the
else.
neighbors.
It doesn't help the neighbors, no matter what, it's probably gonna be two solutions. One is to do some really broad solution to get rid of it off the lot. And then it's gonna need to be done with care for each of the neighbors, depending upon if they have gardens or, so
Make
it's,
sure they restore it to
yes, what it is, so it's gonna,
something usable.
it's gonna be
Yeah,
different things.
you have to take all the topsoil out and even the
Yeah.
subsoil below and just rip it all out and put it in a truck and,
Yeah, no,
take it
it's a major,
somewhere.
major problem, but that's all I have. Yeah, thank you.
Zabady?
So I really just have one question. Why is it septic?
There's no sewer here.
There's no sewer on the condos?
The condos are sewered because the sewer's out in Main Street.
But you can't bring it through?
Not,
Board of Health didn't,
not now. There really isn't any issue with,
William and Marion don't have sewer.
they don't have sewer. And, there's a lot of parts of town, and I've gone to the sewer and water guys. In fact, who was the town manager before? Anyway, they had me make a list of all of the places that I thought that could not only benefit from sewer, but be easily sewered, if you know what I'm saying, without,
Yes.
trying to bring a pipe halfway across town. And William and Marion was one of them, and they kind of crossed it off. Well, there are good soils there. So these soils here are, hydrologic group A soil. So these are sands and gravels. But some places the water table's not necessarily all that deep in the ground, so that's sometimes.
It's just funny to me that Main Street's right there and there's no sewer.
Right.
Okay, what happened many years ago is the Sewer and Water Board had a great idea that they had a master plan to sewer the entire town. That's when I got really PO'd saying, we're gonna send all our aquifer water to Deer Island, just to sewer the whole town. When you have places like this, we wanna put it back. So this is all just a recharge. It's probably one of the reasons they want scratch.
You're 100% correct about that, because a town like Walpole, where we take the water out of the ground, and then about 50 or 60% of the water, we send it right to Boston Harbor, is not sustainable. So really, in this town, it's not terrible, to promote and have septic systems, but there are parts of town where just because of the soils, it's not helping, because it's just not really,
That's
recharging the aquifer, it's going other places.
All right, you all set, Kate?
Yep.
John?
Looking at sheet 4, which I think is what you have up there. The proposed wall, or the retaining wall, I guess, is that just come up to ground level?
Right.
Okay, and then the safety fence,
There should be a detail, is there, did you?
oh, I didn't check, so it could be.
There should be, on the roadway on the roadway detail. If there isn't, put it on there.
I have it on my list to ask, I forgot to ask. I didn't see it.
Oh, yes.
Yes, it's on.
Yes, it is.
Good, where is
It's
it?
got a 4-foot high, vinyl clad chain.
Oh.
What page is it on?
It is on page 7. So sort of in the middle at the top, a bit to the left. So we're showing a strong stone wall.
Oh, that's, okay, it's a combination, okay, I see what it is. Okay,
So it's pretty common retaining wall, big lots. Didn't go anywhere. I don't think that wall's that high.
okay, I can see the slope to the north, the northwest of the cul-de-sac. How does the land slope from basically the split between Lot 2 and Lot 1? Is there still slope involved there, or is basically the cul-de-sac being The same level?
Right behind the
Yeah.
building. We're not touching that. We don't go beyond this wall right here, so nothing's changing there. It is an odd sort of way that they left that, where it, the way it was planned out, where it just sort of, it's dished out, and it just drops down at about.
So it's just gonna be like a
2-to-1
cliff
slope.
kinda?
Hmm?
You mean it's just gonna be like a straight drop down from the,
You can see it. You can see it on, it's not straight down, but it's fairly steep for. So you can.
you have three hands?
So the cul-de-sac's here,
Yeah,
and then this is the grading down, because this is, this elevation here is at the first floor of the building.
So-
It's cut down, it's cut in to this, sort of this little bit of hill here.
okay, so
So
the
we're
cul
not touching that, there isn't really much you can do about
so
it.
the cul-de-sac is sitting at the top of that slope?
Exactly, yeah.
And then it just slopes down from there. What type of slope are we talking? Do you know?
Well, it looks to me like it's a 2-to-1 slope based on this plan right here.
So of that 26-foot buffer, a lot of that is sloped then, is that correct?
Yes.
All of it? Okay. And what is the height difference there, John?
On the wall,
Well, I mean, from like, where the
from the
cul-de-sac will be down to where the base of the other property is?
Well, so the ground's at about, so if you include, it's about 6 feet drop from that.
Oh, so it's
we were
not as
just
much
looking
as
at.
I thought, okay, 6 feet down, okay. I don't believe I have any other questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. My one question is stolen. Learn not to write it so someone can read it,
You know why I asked that question?
because you saw it on my list.
No, because of my house.
You saw it on my list, lady. You explained to me the septic. Couple questions. First on the wall. Try to look at the grade, I can't figure out, what's the top of the wall versus the bottom at the dirt, at the,
It's not a lot, it should have been,
oh, you can't find it either, huh?
No, there's no top and bottoms on there, it's one
I don't know why.
So why would we?
I'll have them put them on.
How, okay,
But the top of the slope coming up is like at 205, and then this catch basin's at 205.5, which means that the top of the curb's at 206, so it's not a very tall wall, but I will make sure that.
okay, then, so it's like a foot drop, it's mostly on
Yeah,
the
it's
ground.
not- Yeah,
Okay, now, next question is, why the fence if it's just a little jump?
well, because on the other side of it, there's a 2-to-1 slope, you gotta have a fence there.
Where's, okay, point that out, where's the 2-and-1?
Well, right in here.
Oh, going back down that way,
Yeah.
okay, all right, so.
You wouldn't wanna trip on that wall and go down that slope.
I don't think that slope is shown on any of these.
No.
Hmm?
I don't think
Yeah,
that
it's
slope
not
is
really
shown on,
shown.
like, the existing conditions or anything from
Is-
what,
Okay, well, you want us to add that to
Well,
the,
is this, John, is the fence for the 1429, isn't that right, almost touching this?
no, that's down, oh, yeah, you're right, it's pretty.
So that's my point, how many fences we gonna have?
Okay. I get you. We'll take the fence off.
I mean, you got a fence next to a fence next to a fence. So, now, is the wall itself, where is that located?
It's actually located on this side.
It's on the lot, that's what I wanna make sure, so it's not ours
Located
to,
on
ma-
that lot. To
it's,
tell you the truth, I would prefer actually probably to keep that fence and take out that fence if that's possible, but we can talk about that later.
well, that's, yeah, at the big meeting they're gonna have some night with all the
Yeah.
condo associations. Okay, but, right now, we don't want walls that we have to maintain. Now, the other thing is, it's like a keystone block wall, John?
Yeah, it's bigger
You
than
don't-
that. It's stone strung, so it's it's
Oh,
42
okay.
inches or 44 inches.
So
from
this is
front
something you
to
can
back.
knock over with your plow?
No, you're not gonna knock that wall over.
You've seen some of the way they plow, but it's not one of the little keystones?
No, no, no.
Okay, all
It's
right,
that
that's,
stone strung, you know? how
yeah, the
it
big white
has-
ones.
It's like a whitish color.
Yeah, like
and
PJ put in his place.
they're
Yeah, you
huge.
can't knock them. I was concerned if it's one of those little keystone walls that just get knocked.
No,
Okay.
we usually try to stick with the stone strung where we can.
Okay, this is, I'll ask the question anyway, you know, it's a different question, but it was said. Chris, I assume John Marini has successes if, if he retires and,
Yeah, and in fact, I don't want to speak out of turn, but maybe I can provide the board with a better update about that.
it's just how it go, yeah, because I'm sure everybody wants to know if this gets approved and he walks or whatever else, that there is some succession to this, that's all.
Yeah, I don't want to speak to it now.
That's fine, I just,
but maybe I'll-
I've written that down. My only other question, or questions, is you have some waivers, we will deal with those after we get everything done, on this, so, 'cause you got
So
other
some
things.
of the requests based on the talk we're having here might change a little bit. Some of them might go away and some things might be added.
Okay, well, the impact study, we can either say, traffic, yes or no. Dead-end street is, you gotta keep it 96 feet to keep it within, to make it go. And Sarah talked about the roundings, that you've done it based upon,
Right, so
you've kept that. Oh, no, you haven't, no, to allow the layout with intent, one side only, okay? And maintain a 40-foot, all right? And sidewalks, that's something else, so, all right, once you,
yeah, because we might be tweaking it
that's what I'm saying.
with the town engineer.
That's why I'll hold this
Yeah,
until it all looks,
yeah, I think that makes sense.
okay, I just wanna make sure. With that being said, from me and all the board members, does anybody have any questions, comments relative to this subdivision?
Cassie Braithwaite, 1429 Main Street. He talked about having this retaining wall, but as mentioned before, that doesn't stop the future owner from being able to remove that, correct? Because anything basically on their property, they can take down.
Yeah, but it's gonna be at grade level, but he's gonna put a full regular cul-de-sac. That's only for the dirt behind there. He's gonna have to put in curbing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, if you're worried about water, it's gonna go into the catch basin.
She's saying that the homeowner's gonna remove that.
No, so I'm saying, like, what happens, like, is that homeowner responsible for making sure that stays that way?
Yeah.
Afterwards?
Yeah.
Um,
But if you're worried about water, it's gonna go into the catch basin, go back.
I'm not necessarily, I heard about the water stuff, it's just, if it starts falling apart, the look of it, that's literally right there in front of me.
Well, it'd be a very difficult one to take apart.
I just want, because I know they were asking about the incline, so I have a picture actually from what it looks like from the back where you can see the top of the fence. So this is the top of the fence down at the yard.
Yep.
And so, it's basically straight up from there and you can, so the road would like start right there essentially, because that's right where it gets. So it's pretty close to my vision and everything. So this is like my main view. Then I have a window over here and a window over here. So I will be coming from buying a home looking at the master deed where it says unbuildable lot to thinking I'm not gonna have to look, to now looking at asphalt and then a home. So because of how close it is right there, I mean, it's really taking away a lot from an actual homeowner who's already living there buying from that premises. And so definitely something to consider looking into, because I know they're talking about giving part of the back property so there's bufferage, but being more creative with something to make it work so I'm not losing everything out of this, would be very much appreciated.
Well, from a subdivision standpoint, we can't, what do you call it? But because you're on the other side, you're an owner, you have that opportunity to make, and I think even John alluded to, oh, maybe we just do one fence like this or something, but that's gonna come, you guys can incorporate and make an agreement, and come back to us on that, is whatever makes sense for you, for the condo association. Whether you wanna put it on your side or their side or whatever they do.
So does it mean it has to come from the HOA association, like everyone has to be
No,
on
what-
board, or is it all of the owners?
If it was me, when you guys get together and what you want for plantings, take in consideration what's gonna be behind you, but keep it so it's on your property.
With adding stuff to our property takes away the little yard I have.
Well, I'm not saying, I'm not talking 26 feet, if you wanna put a row of evergreen or something. So all I'm saying is, there's opportunities to do something there, to take away with the look of it, or however they finish it off.
Is it possible to move the cul-de-sac
Yeah.
a little bit
Push it.
That's what I was
further?
thinking.
Move it further up, because if lot two,
Yeah.
if lot two owns the
Anybody from
land.
Dunkin' Donuts here, we'll go that way, right?
Because the other concern is the amount of noise that's gonna come, because Dunkin' Donuts is right there, so it takes a lot away of that greenery that's gonna block
So,
the
but even if
noise.
you move it just 4 feet or something, it might give more space to put plantings there.
Mm-hmm.
And if lot two owns the land on the southern side of the cul-de-sac, then they're gonna have the same lot
Then
size.
it's not gonna change, yeah.
Not gonna change the lot footage, so that might be something to think about, just moving it, even a couple feet might make a big difference from, for the condos.
We can definitely look at that, it's just,
Yeah.
and you didn't vote on them, and that's fine. So it might just require a little bit, but we can't, we have to keep the fire department in mind and
Yeah.
the pavement radius, but we can.
Yeah, but
look
instead of
at
being like
maybe
this,
Moving away from.
You bring it up,
Yeah, you keep the radius the
Instead of
same, you
being-
just,
a right hook, it's almost straight in.
because it's already got
They
a.
normally
a hook.
look just very
But
centered.
then it brings up the point that you're asking to put trees or some kind of buffer on the subdivision, and that can just be taken down.
Taken down, right. They're limited, they have to put the buffer in that 26-foot stretch. There's no real options there.
No,
to-
it would,
in order
it
to
wouldn't
keep-
be a buffer, it would be like an appeasement, like a,
Yeah.
But-
Well, either that or instead of trees, put in.
there's nothing to
Fence?
do in the deed or anything, Jack, to,
What?
I don't know, to say like this is a no-touch zone?
Well, if they put it in the master deed, yeah, that's in.
But in the master deed, it says that
No,
they,
it's not in the master deed, I'm sorry.
For this
Oh,
new
this one.
home.
Oh, for no home,
Yeah.
no,
For lot
no,
two.
it's just like your house, you can do what you want to, go right to the edge and cut the trees down and dig holes and.
There's nothing to
so
do.
is there a way to, because they wanna cut it right here, cut it further out, give part of it to here, so we could put something right there?
That's,
So like
When you-
we're giving us more, take away less from us.
you have points that we can't,
Mm-hmm.
but,
They don't have a whole lot to give, but maybe.
Yeah.
yeah,
it's a-
I
when
mean, they
you,
have their whole property to give.
when you
back
have your
to me.
meeting,
Okay.
that's when this all kinda, you guys
Mm-hmm.
hash it out how, they are limited what they can do, what you gotta understand, but there's something at least you get them to the max that they can do.
All right, thank you.
And that'll come all during your whole meeting, okay?
Thanks.
Any other questions? No, everybody all set? All right. You want some more? You wanna stay some more?
I think the Celtics are playing right now.
Yes.
Yeah,
Motion to,
and,
9:42.
yeah, I'm missing
and
the first
they're
half.
probably losing.
Don't say that.
Don't say it.
Oh, they have no one playing. All right, now, since we both got them open, what?
I just have, is the cul-de-sac considered private property if the homeowner is gonna be
No.
responsible for that?
It's a town road.
Maintaining all,
It'll be a town road.
it will be a town.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll be just like you moved into a road with a cul-de-sac now.
But they own the property surrounding.
Only because they need all the land to make their lot, from my understanding, work.
1,000.
Okay. Kate, what do we need?
I need an extension on both. June 16th is our next meeting, and there's 4 on it already. Then we go to July 21st, and there's 1 on it.
Okay.
Think July makes more sense?
Yeah, I mean, because John's got stuff to do, you got stuff to do, you got someone in Canton to convince he's got stuff to do, and,
Yeah, I'm booked that day anyway, so,
what,
the June date, so July, I think makes sense.
oh, I like that. All right, can we have an extension for the site plan up through July 31st?
Yes,
Okay, make a motion to allow the, take action as requested by the applicant up through July 31st, 2022.
Second.
Wait a second, any further discussion? What? Phil, we'll give it to Phil, Kate's had enough of my stuff. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, I'll make a motion, July 31st for the subdivision 2?
Yep.
Make a motion that we grant the applicant up through July 31st, 2022.
Second.
Oh, she's fighting you.
Second, okay.
I'm gonna stay on the side.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, what time?
Bristol's on at 7:15. I haven't heard anything from them for their subdivision, so.
We'll do them, yeah, we're not gonna sit here, so I haven't either, I haven't called a friend of mine.
7:18?
Yeah,
7:10? 7:10?
no, 7, 8, yeah.
15? They're on at 7:15.
Put them
Oh.
1 minute after.
All right, 7:16.
7:16 for the site plan,
And
and
7:17.
17 for the, what do they call it? Subdivision on July, what is that?
21st.
21st.
great,
All right.
thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else? Oh. The minutes? What's the last thing we got here? Make a motion to approve the minutes of May 5th.
Second?
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain?
Abstain? Okay.
May 5th.
You know,
I didn't see,
you
you
did,
know.
it was sitting
Oh,
right there.
motion to adjourn.
so-
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Second.
Not me. I'll
Second. John seconded.
abstain. You.
I didn't. So the reason I asked that is because at my house,
Nobody
it
wants
was
to adjourn?
such a huge, it was such a huge point.